Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, January 13th, and this is Morning Market Movers, where we take a look at hotspots in the markets for the day. We do some live analysis for day trading, and we have some things that we've got some things going on today with some more economic data coming out. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me, Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. We did just have the PPI numbers come out, the producer uh, price index. We know the consumer prices are higher. They're incrementally getting higher, setting a spike in the consumer prices. It's been 40 years since we've seen a spike this high. Producer prices actually not going up as quickly. They're actually starting to normalize, which creates an interesting situation. So we are going to take a look at what's going on with how we think this might play out with equities, as well as how it's playing out with the dollar, because we are seeing some dollar weakness on that, and it does paint an interesting story for equities. Before Brian and I jump into it, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. As I mentioned, you know what? Let me just bring up you can kind of see. I mean, the dollar, we can see dollar weakness. I mean, yesterday, even through last night, but the news today with the PPI dollar not doing much of anything. We've got a very similar chart down here on the Swiss. It's actually a little bit more dramatic. Of course, here the dollar's in the first position. So you see had the dollar weakness yesterday, some additional weakness overnight. And now with the PPI number not doing much of anything, but we do expect to see it move equities. So with that, Brian, and we also have, just so we know, Brainerd from the Fed is going to be speaking today. She's doing her confirmation hearings. We already know what she's going to say, and then she's going to do testimony. They're going to ask her questions. That could be interesting because she's second in charge. We had Powell yesterday, and I'm not going to steal Brian's thunder because we do know what Brainerd is going to say, and it's interesting
Yeah.
how they sort of coordinated on this message. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's take a look at the PPI numbers, and then we can talk about Brainerd, and then let's get over to the charts.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very important to bring up. So, just starting off with the PPI number, we talked about don't be surprised if this is higher. It's funny. It's painting a very, very interesting picture right now. Now, core PPI, again, core, remember, is stripping out food and energy and all those kinds of things. That held firm. That came in as exactly as expected. But when you add everything in there, it's what's interesting about it. Again, remember, excluding food and energy, and if you look at where the prices rose the most from 2020, to 2021, and where we are now, energy leads that pack. But right now, seeing a month-over-month basis, the core with those removed are still high. It's still increasing. But when you look at the actual month-over-month for the PPI figure, which is everything in there, it missed. Okay, so what's interesting about this is the producers are now paying less. And again, if you're not sure what PPI is, it's the change in the price of finished goods and services sold by producers. So it's, again, they're starting to sell differently, but we're seeing inflation continue at a much, much higher pace. So again, the numbers are starting to get a little bit weird. It looks like a lot of this is starting to be sucked out of the energies. And remember, that was the main target, was to control inflation. This is one of those things that this paints a very interesting story going forward for oil, because it's been energy is, and particularly oil, has been the taboo word that nobody wants to talk about because inflation is jacked up so high. But now we're starting to see it come out of that arena, and again, everything else catching up. And this one, right now the dollar could care less that this is a 0.2. Nobody's really concerned about it. Unemployment claims going up a little bit. Everybody see this is like, oh my God, dollar destruction. The dollar was already going down, and if you think about how the FOMC plays things out, if you look at the personalities of Powell, it's very rare that he ever delivers any type of hawkish-based news. It's always on the weaker side. And then what do we hear? We hear all the Fed presidents be really, really strong. Well, Bernard is number two. Her response today, I expect to be extremely hawkish. We'll see when all these results come out. Again, there will be some kind of unexpected things in there. But if you think about it, how there always has to be fair balance because they're trying to avoid a shock in the system. We saw what the FOMC notes are. We got the complete opposite of it in Powell's speech. Well, okay, then why did the FOMC notes? Why were they that hawkish? It'll be her that releases all the hawkish information.
And they know that she's going to say
Yeah,
that the number one priority of the Fed right now is going to
is
be
inflation.
inflation. So we know that that's coming. The number one priority is going to be inflation.
Yep.
Yesterday we had Powell, the calm. He was
Mhm.
measured. We're going, and he did say that they're going to be raising rates, and we know,
But they had
but
no,
he
yeah,
didn't
they had no
say,
idea when.
he
Yeah,
doesn't say
it was,
when. He's going to defer to the committee in
yeah.
terms of reducing the balance sheet. That's all going to
Mhm.
be deferred to the committee. But he intimated that these things are all coming. He just was not really aggressive about it. He was much more
Mhm.
measured. We're going to get Brainerd giving the much more aggressive message so that
Yeah,
people get the message, and it's not coming from Powell,
yeah,
who is the head of it. He's going to be more measured in how he does it,
right.
so
Yeah, I mean, remember, and
we'll know what
she's
that's coming. We know it's
yeah,
coming.
she is the one that's been picked to be kind of the next replacement. Now, it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that she's guaranteed to absolutely be. It's really going to depend on what happens going forward. She has to be very, very measured on what she has to say. But the reason she was put up is because they're trying to stack it up, the succession in there, so they could, because again, this is why we've seen like the Supreme Court rolled to one side and the House moves back and forth again. They're right now trying to stack the FOMCs to where if they lose at the next election, she's already in. And I don't I like her a lot. I don't think she should be next in line. I think that she hasn't been necessarily 100% accurate, but she's what the next pick is. So I feel that she is going to be the hawkish motion today. And as I said before, absolutely 100% support her in how hawkish she's been about the digital dollar. That's going to throw things in too once she starts throwing her weight around. That's going to be a major, major player inside of that realm. So, and again, don't be surprised if all of a sudden there is some type of change in the United States and crypto. We just saw the crash with Kazakhstan, and again, don't be surprised if she isn't the driving force for the next round. So I think today this is great. Dollar weakness across the board in the last 24 hours. Most of it is actually in the last 24 hours. It's not, there is zero reaction, none whatsoever off of PPI. A lot of it came in yesterday after the talk. Kind of 8:30, it started to deteriorate, kind of stabilized at 2 o'clock and kind of held. And then again, Europeans got in and said, okay, we got to get this down. And they tried to position it down as low as they possibly could. So with all of this pushback to the downside and really across the board, dollar yen down big. And again, the yen is pretty much strong across the board. Dollar Swiss down big. Dollar CAD down big again. Aussie dollar up. Pound dollar up. Dollar weakness, there's a lot of opportunity to take reversals in all these positions. Because again, her hawkish tone right now, when you see all this movement ahead of time, it's typically the big banks and big aspects of money positioning themselves before the news, because when she comes in strong, that's where you can get your reversals. But again, you got to be in first. You don't want to be in last. So when she makes a statement, if it already spikes, by the time you can react, it's already too late. So again, she speaks in, or actually, I guess the data is already, it's going to be released at 10 o'clock this morning. Looking at those charts, particularly the shorter duration contracts, 15, 30 minutes right beforehand, don't try to get into a 10 to 12. The data will be out. The price will move already. You're going to have to look at a 9 to 11 this morning to be able to take advantage of what she has to say. So
Right.
that's, I would say, overall with everything we've seen, again, unemployment claims up. That's positive for the overall indices. PPI down, also positive. Again, this should be showing that we're going to be driving, corporate profits should go higher from this one as well. So that's going to be good, depending on what she says and when with it. I wouldn't be surprised if she lists out a timeline, right? He said we don't have a timeline. Yeah, okay. I'm sure that
Well,
they do kind of have one. I wouldn't be surprised if she lays out the timeline
yeah,
today.
it maybe gives us an indication. Let's take a look at
Yep.
the equities. I was going to say let's
Hmm.
look at some of these charts, because I agree with you that with the consumer prices, and tomorrow
Yeah.
we're kicking off earnings season. Here we go,
Hmm.
and we're going to start seeing what corporate earnings look like. Now tomorrow is the banks, but then next
Hmm.
week, I mean, we're going to start getting all these corporate earnings, and we see consumer prices through the
Yep.
roof, producer prices
Hmm.
stabilizing. That's going to mean that's going to translate to corporate profits.
Yeah,
So,
and I think banks are gonna. I think banks will have good reporting tomorrow. Although we haven't seen the official overnight rate hike yet, if you look at mortgage rates are actually higher than now. They're not at the low that they used to be. I mean,
yeah,
the anticipation of it. So again, banks do a lot of mortgages, a lot of lending there. They're going to start seeing profits. Banks absolutely love the rising interest rate environment because they're all about lending. That's how they get money. So, um, I'd say right now, I mean, VIX is up a little bit, but it's really, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's almost exactly where we closed. There's just a little bit of a gap, and it's rolling back down again. When her comments come out, we should see this continue to roll forward. The yes right now is up a little bit, and again, yesterday from that news, it's kind of like, all right, we pulled back. There was some profit taking. Again, we kind of based in the overnight, and we're starting to rally back up again. I would say where is it? Right there. This is a decent candle, and I like this candle. I think it's no, it's an overall good candle. I like the formation of it. This is one that I would again. I don't know why the heck it's so dark. This is one that I definitely watch out for, and the reason why I say that is because, and actually we'll put it to the high there. You can see this 23.6 level. It's already pulled back once. It's pulled back a second time. It's got this whole basing pulled back to a third time. I don't really think that this level can hold here. I'm looking at kind of this level down here, psychological level, 4,700. We're at 47.25ish now, but if we can not blow through this area of sellers, and again, it's a small area of sellers. It was created at 10 o'clock yesterday. We know what happened at 10 o'clock yesterday. It's when Powell's comments came out. If price is still sitting up there, it's one of those things. If she comes in extremely hawkish, that actually should roll all the indices back to the downside. The data should push us higher. But if she comes in and says we have a plan, it's going to be 3 or 4 raises this year, and again, she's already said it's our number one priority, and the only way to do that is to raise interest rates.
Yeah.
Again, that's where we see the roll down overall, and with kind of a Harry Potter setting right here,
are people pricing that in already, expecting her to say that? Because we know, I mean, we know what her we know she's going to come in that way. I guess it's.
I'd say yes, you're 100% correct. The pricing in right now is the European setting it higher. That's the pricing in. Remember, the retail trader doesn't have any idea what she's going to say. The retail trader does not price anything in. The market and the big money prices things in advance because, again, if price goes up and you see her say something, the price shoots down, then the retail trader gets in reacting to the news. Remember, the way that trading works is you want to be the first in, not the last in. Okay?
Right.
As they drive prices higher, people say, well, wait a second, we're breaking highs. Look at this. We're going up today, right? Not realizing that she could completely tank this today. And again, we see it in oil all the time. We've seen it in gold again.
Right.
And again, getting a little bit of a breather over here in oil and natural gas. Oil's already down, but this is why we see reversals at when sessions flip over. So Europeans are sending it higher. What do the Europeans know that we don't? Well, they know if they can get price up and they can start selling it up top, then they can get a much better price for it on the way back down again. Yeah. Yes, very, very interesting chart. And this is a 30-minute. I can drop it down. We're supposed to do it on the 15, but you guys can really see how this level at 4,700, it was a base here. It touched it. It touched it. It touched it. It based on the top. This is kind of a big line in the sand. And then we kind of got this big push all the way back down to 46.40. If she says anything that's super inflammatory, again, it's right around the 10 o'clock reversal. We go up in the morning. It could come falling down. NQ, kind of the same thing. NQ is not even back to the highs we had yesterday. There's also a level of basing, which just happens to be right at 16,000, which we know is a big level. We get back up to there. Again, she comes in super inflammatory. That's a big turning point again. So we have those things. Same thing. 36,300 is the same price level that we have from yesterday. Kind of the same thing. We're back up and we have another Fed person talking. I didn't say much, but here we go. And Russell kind of the same stance. And right now there is no outliner. There is not, the ES is up.
These charts all look almost the same. I mean, these charts almost all look identical at the moment.
Yep. And the strongest and weakest, it's the strongest is up 0.22. I'm sorry, the strongest is up 0.35. The weakest is up 0.22. So they're almost exactly all in the same spot. Apple and Tesla look good. As I said, VIX is slightly higher, but again, we got to hear what she has to say. And gold, look at gold. Gold chopping around from that level. We're seeing gold start to push down. Gold is technically down to 0.24. And silver is technically up 0.25 or 0.15.
Silver punching through the 23 level, which I thought was rather interesting.
It hasn't left. It's still kind of at that 23. It's having struggles, but whenever you see a divergence in gold and silver, it shows you that the market doesn't really fully know, right? And then again, oil in the overnight, is it doing much? Nah, it kind of put that little kind of top in yesterday afternoon, and we're kind of seeing it roll back a little bit, even though we know that the numbers are pretty decent. And natural gas down 5% today, already pulling back. And we know what's going on. We're having super cold freezes everywhere else, and it skyrocketed, yesterday, and now it's pulling back, and it's got inventory today. At the same time, the crypto is almost completely flat. Bitcoin is up 0.03. Ethereum is 0.002 or 03 right now.
They did rally back a little bit after getting absolutely hammered. So
yeah, I mean they're back in the 44,000 range. So I mean, again, it looks, it is a strong push back again, but right now they're basically just flat. They're not really. There's really no overnight movement.
Everything's kind of just
Yeah.
mellow right now,
Yeah.
which is going to, now tomorrow we
Yeah.
do have retail sales,
Yeah,
which
that's
would,
the next big dropper. And again,
this,
expected to be lower, right? Expected to be lower, not negative, but again, look at this regular retail sales number, not the core number. It's supposed to come in at point 0. Imagine what they're going to say. Again, profits look awesome, but retail sales down. What
so
if
yeah,
that's a negative number? What does that do to the market on Friday? You
so yeah,
know?
we're getting these mixed messages right now, which is why
Yeah.
everything's just sort of taken
Yeah.
a pause at the moment, and I think
Yeah.
the markets are waiting to hear. Well, one, how aggressive Brainerd is, and then
Yeah.
it's
And
where do the retail
and I and
sales
I
come
think
in,
I
and
think she needs to
corporate
be.
earnings. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think she needs to be aggressive because here's the thing: they're always trying to do that, cover their butt, right? I mean, I could use a different word for it, but they're trying to cover
yeah,
themselves. If one goes weak, one goes strong. That's what's called fair
oh,
balance. They like to keep that. Being the
yeah.
new person in, you got to be different than the last guy, or she stands no chance at being the next person that takes over. So she has to separate herself and have a different line of speech than Powell. So
And then
it's got to be the other direction. So
yeah, and
we'll see how strong though.
and we'll see how the market
Yeah,
reacts to that. But again, expect right now while everything's on pause, expect some volatility once. I mean, when her testimony drops, and then when they start asking her questions,
I'm
that's
hoping
really
it's like a mic drop. I'm like, be a cowboy, do it,
yeah.
have it up, right? Be
Stir-
be be that person. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes, and then again tomorrow with the retail sales, and we start getting corporate earnings numbers, at least with the
Mhm.
banks, and we kick off the earnings cycle for this. For the it is going to get interesting. We should expect to see some volatility.
Yep.
With that, any questions for Nadex? Please email us customers. Oh wait, what did you have?
Oh no,
What
I'm
did you
just
have?
saying. And by the way, one of the big movers that I think I just want to end it with, one of the biggest movers out. Actually, it is the biggest mover right now. Kind of tied with the dollar Swiss, and part of the reason why we're seeing that one is $1 weakness. But there's statements right here. The Kremlin is supposedly not happy about the sanctions. I don't know anybody that is happy about sanctions, but they're saying that this is putting that sanctions would mean a breach in relations. Like if you
Hmm,
do something wrong, we throw. Of course, you're not happy about it, but it's a headline. Just so everybody
yeah,
knows. Look for again as that continues to deteriorate. This dollar Swiss again. If we don't have the dollar strength coming in, 93 is 1.5 times its daily ATR on the dollar Swiss. So there's been a lot of movement in a pair that doesn't really move a lot. Again, it's because of that. So follow that story closely.
yeah,
And again,
yeah.
with continued dollar weakness, look for that one to continue to just drive lower, 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 lower. This is a great weekly trade setup right now. So if you guys have been in the dollar Swiss.
Perfect. All right. Well, with that, any questions for Nadex, please email us customer service at nadex.com. Brian and I are both accessible. Brian is available at support@keeptradingsimple.com. Please feel free to email Brian, ask him any questions. I am also available, todd.rich@ig.com. Uh, yeah, a little bit of a ho-hum morning to start as we wait for the retail trader to react and digest those PPI numbers. Interesting, CPI through the roof, PPI stabilizing, going into corporate earnings season. That should be kind of fun to see how that manifests itself. Retail sales again tomorrow morning, and then the Brainerd testimony today. 10 a.m. She'll drop that, but we know that she's going to be talking about how inflation is the priority of the Fed, and then we'll see what kind of question she gets. With that, Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning. So, want to thank everyone for joining us, and we will catch you again tomorrow morning. Good luck in the markets.